Hello and welcome to our second and most likely last episode of Full Court Press. My name is Chris Murphy and to my right is Colton Poole.
Hello.
And we are the people who interview your teenagers. And we're also the people who write in our laptops in the car, in the parking lot, outside of games that you judge and laugh at. But anyway, we've decided to do a podcast and this is the second episode of it. And yeah, we're going to talk about some high school sports. So with that, I will open it up to Colton Poole, who will be talking about West Fargo boys soccer and state tournament coming up. Go.
Yeah, state tournament, defending state champion West Fargo is the number one.
Boys soccer, of course.
Boys soccer is the number one seed out of the East. Going into the state tournament, they've got number 4 seeded West out of the West region, Mandan, at 4:30 on Thursday in Jamestown. And yeah, just did a kind of a preview story leading up to the state tournament. And really interesting, I was talking to their head coach, and he just kind of mentioned how, because I was looking at the roster, and it seemed like more often than not, these kids were from other countries. And so I was asking the coach about that, and he mentioned that it looks like kids can, between everyone on the team, they can speak 12 different languages and are from 9 different countries, which is insane to think about. You know, you have a team that needs to come together and has this common goal and needs to be able to communicate. They're from all these different places, and they're playing as well as they are. It's just really interesting. Story came out on Tuesday, and yeah, just really fascinating to listen to Telvin Va and Mohammed Hamza. Va, obviously a great soccer player. And just kind of listen to them tell their stories about where they're from and how they got here.
Who speaks the most languages? Do you know?
His name is Sabiti Mauricio.
And how many languages does he speak?
He can speak 4. He's from Zambia. He can speak Swahili. I'm going to butcher these pronunciations.
That's why I asked.
Bemba, Nyanja, and Chitanga.
And how many languages can you speak?
Half. I can
One and
kind
half?
of. I can kind
Is
of
the half
speak
English?
I can speak gibberish.
Ooh.
And mediocre English.
All right.
That's why I'm a writer.
I speak English good.
That's what I hear.
And will anyone challenge, like, who's got the best shot at beating West Fargo?
If you're looking just at the state tournament and the brackets.
Oh, ESPN's got an update on your phone. That's good.
If you're looking at the brackets, it looks like Bismarck Century is the number 1 seed out of the West, but I think that maybe the best team that has the best odds of beating West Fargo this year, like I said, returning state champion, they return a lot of talent from last year, would be Fargo South. They beat West Fargo, and South went 1-1 this year. South beat them 3-1 at West Fargo late in the season. And Davies beat them as well in the very last match of the season when West Fargo already had the number 1 seed locked up. I would say that South probably has the best chances, but it's going to be West Fargo favored as the team to beat in the state tournament.
Has anybody beaten West Fargo this year? Did we just go over this? Did you just say that?
We just went over this.
Oh, good God, I was not paying attention at all. Well, now we'll talk about Minnesota football. We got some big games coming up, and I just realized that I did not list all of them, and now I'm totally panicking. But I used to start off, Perham plays DGF, and the big thing with that, the top 3 teams in their section is Perham, DGF, and Pequot Lakes. Pequot Lakes has beaten DGF. Perham has beaten Pequot Lakes. So this is a bigger game for DGF, and it's at home. Bigger game for DGF than it is for Perham necessarily. But either way, DGF has won the section title, I believe, the last 4 years in a row. So, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that's what Perham's looking at right now.
Have you seen all of these teams this year?
I did not see Perham live. I've seen DGF live, and I've seen Pequot Lakes live. I saw them play each other, actually. Pequot Lakes on short rest. Pequot Lakes actually, because of storms, had to play a game on Monday against Perham, had to finish the game and lost. I think they gave up 12 points when recapping the game in the fourth quarter on that Monday, lost, and then had to come back on Friday, go to Glendon, and play DGF and beat them pretty handily. I mean, that's a hike of a drive from Pequot Lakes to Glendon. So to go from Perham on Monday, losing that game in the way you did to where you were winning, they were up 1, and then I think Perham scored like 12 unanswered when they restarted the game in the fourth quarter on Monday. So to lose that way, and then you only have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to practice. Then Friday, you got a game in Glendon against a team that has beaten you the last 4 years, I think, in the section championship, and to come out and beat them the way they did was really impressive. So yeah, it all of a sudden went from being a DGF Perham section to now it's Pequot Lakes threw their name in there. So that's a big one. But the biggest one, I mean, this is Holly Barnesville week. QRF wise, you got number 3 Barnesville and number 7 Holly. They're both 6-0. And they kind of have a special place for me because when I first started, this was my kind of introduction to the area. It was...
What was that, like 20 years ago?
No, that was not 20 years ago, you child. That was... God, this is my sixth year, I think, here at the Forum. But who's counting? And it was Holly Barnesville, and like that was my introduction to the Heart of Lakes. That was my introduction to the area rivals. And it was great because it was on one side you had Jordan Harms and Ben Ellefson on Holly going against Michael Strand on Barnesville. And now all of them, Jordan Harms is playing baseball at NDSU, Ben Ellefson's playing football at NDSU, Michael Strand's playing football at MSUM. And the best part is like they play both sides of the ball. So it just seemed like, there's a bunch of people on the field, but it seemed like those three just were always looking at each other, and it was just them and everybody else. And don't get me wrong, I mean, those Holly teams were great, and the Barnesville teams were great, but it just was play after play by those guys. And that was my introduction to it, and I loved it. There's just something about, an entire town being there, and, so much being on the line. They always play in the section championship at the Fargo Dome, and it was just, when those two teams are against each other, it's great. And the thing I love the best was, like, for a period there, Holly was good at everything. They were good at girls basketball. They were good at boys basketball. They were good at football. And everybody seemed to not like them. Frazee didn't like them every once in a while. DGF didn't like them every once in a while. But one team and Holly just kind of, they had a rivalry with whoever ran into them because they were good and everybody wanted to beat them. Breckenridge didn't like them in boys basketball. And it was great. Everybody was going after Holly. But God, there was a team, Barnesville, it doesn't matter what the sport is, they hate Holly. They want to beat Holly so bad, and it's fun to be at. And honestly, for the last 3 meetings, they've beaten Holly in football. They beat them 24-14 in a section title game. They beat it last year. Then they beat them 40-18 in the regular season last year. And then 2 years ago, they beat them 49-0. So since like Ellefson and Jordan Harms in that senior class left, Barnesville's kind of taken it to Holly. So it's kind of a role reversal now. You have Barnesville becoming the team to beat, and Holly's got to prove themselves to beat them. And yeah, it's great. And on top of that, this is the first year they're actually going to call it something. For regular season games between Holly and Barnesville, it's going to be called the Battle for Lee's Paddle, and they're going to be playing for a giant paddle, honoring an assistant coach for Holly, Lee Eklund, who died, I believe, in February of cancer. And Lee was loved by everybody. He was around Holly forever. He was known as the Blue Dogs coach because he coached the not the backup guys, but like the guys who had the blue beanies on their helmets so that you could tell that they weren't the starters. He coached them, so he got all the starters ready. He was there forever. I wrote a story on him, I think, when the diagnosis first came out. And yeah, everybody loved him. Like Barnesville included. Brian Strand, the coach of Barnesville, called that out about how close he'd been with Lee. And that's the best part is like these guys hate each other on the field, but then off the field there's just this entire camaraderie between the Heart of Lakes. So yeah, there's nothing better than Holly and Barnesville going against each other. I know I'm pretty sure Barnesville starts practice during Holly week at 6:30 in the morning and then practices after school too. And none of the kids question it because they know how important it is. And Holly just kind of goes about their business. Peter Natz is a pretty cool cat at coach. He's never going to like spice things up.
I'm sure he's a great guy, but who says cool cat anymore?
I just did. Stop it.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, those games are the best. And they'll meet again. I mean, I have all the faith in the world that they will meet again in the section championship, and that game will be even more fun. And that's why you cover these games, is to run into games like this to where they're both good. this is a huge game for both teams. So that's what I got.
This is what makes our job so fun, is getting to cover games like this and cover communities that get so involved with the sports they do. Not to, as Murphy earlier alluded to, not interview your teenagers. Why we do this job is to cover games, fun games like this. Whenever I cover Cheyenne versus West Fargo, those are always fun rivalries, and all these Minnesota rivalries are always so fun.
Yeah, I mean, coming from Chicago, I covered games. I covered rivalry games for the Chicago Sun-Times when I was home or when I was working there. And, there's so much going on in Chicago, with, professional sports games. You never had the crowd you do at these smaller towns. When I became a sports editor in Worthington in 2011, and just there's something about being at a game when the entire town is there and that they're going to read you the next day to see if you saw what they saw in the game and this and that. There's just something to it. And it doesn't matter what field you're on or what city you're in or what town you're in. When the entire town is at a game and you feel the importance of it, it's cool. It is cool to cover an important event. And to a lot of people, Holly Barnesville is a very cool and very important event. So that's it. I mean, Holly Barnesville, that's the big game this week. There's other stuff out there. I mean, Fergus Falls is 5-1. Moorhead, of course, is 5-1. There's a lot of other stuff, but this is Holly Barnesville week. So that's what I got.
Awesome. And now I'll be taking over to talk about North Dakota football a little bit. And namely, you're looking at Fargo area teams in Fargo. I think probably the premier matchup this week. And weirdly enough, games are being played on Thursday this week.
Yep.
I think probably the matchup to watch would be Fargo Davies versus Fargo South.
And why do you think that?
Well, Davies surprisingly has a 3-1 record in the EDC. I think that kind of is surprising everyone. And Fargo South, not so surprisingly, is 3-1 in the EDC. They were 3-0 last week until losing to West Fargo. And I mean, if Davies can win, that would put them in the position to take the number 2 seed in the EDC out of the EDC and give them a home playoff game. So that's obviously the game to watch.
Well, if Davies wins that game, don't they close the season with West Fargo?
Davies would be in not bad position to look at the number 2 seed or even 3 seed out of the EDC, which would be huge for them. And so that'd probably be the matchup to watch out of Fargo. And obviously a couple big area games coming up. Hillsboro against Fargo Oak Grove. Hillsboro, Murphy was pointing this out to me earlier, that Hillsboro now goes from facing Ellendale's Clayton Gurnich to Oak Grove's Ben Hogarth. And
those are arguably the 2 best running backs in the state.
Right. And so looking at Ben Hogarth, you had the feature about him. Tell me a little bit about that story.
Well, I just did a story on when Ellendale and Oak Grove faced each other and how it was Ben Hogarth versus Clayton Grunich. And Hogarth has just been a monster all season. He's incredible. And the thing was, Ellendale won that battle against Oak Grove, and Hillsboro just kind of handed it to Ellendale. So Hillsboro, they stopped Clayton Grunich. They held him to 79 yards rushing. So we'll see what they can do against Ben Hogarth.
Hogarth right now has 1,519 yards on 178 carries for an 8.5 yards per carry average and 18 touchdowns. Absolutely insane for him.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, if you're Hillsboro, you're confident as can be. You just stopped a Clayton Grunich, who came in with nearly 5,000 career rushing yards, which is insane. And yeah, you stopped him, so now you got to stop Ben Hogarth too. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's why you play the game, I guess.
Well, now that Murphy's done hitting us with some classic sports cliches, I think we can call this show to a conclusion.
I'm never coming back.
Murphy has so much fun doing this, as do I. Thanks for listening. This has been Full Court Press, presented by The Forum. I'm reporter Colton Poole, and this is my coworker, Chris Murphy. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Bye.